my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to a video that is 100% out of character for me. I, a while ago, bought the first 5 books in the Percy Jackson series from a thrift store, and read the first book in the Magnus Chase series, and I promised myself I'd get around to PJO eventually, and then the Disney Plus series was announced. So I finally read the first one, and I did a reading vlog that will be in the description below. And I realized as I kind of lurked on Twitter, looking at all of the PJO discourse, that I think I have some opinions that, while not necessarily non-existent, are definitely not mainstream, and I currently haven't seen them. So I thought, why not? Let's do a video. And again, I have only read the first in this series, the first in Magnus Chase, and I've watched the Lightning Thief movie. And yes, I know that's sacrilege. But regardless, this is what I have to work with. So you can say things like, oh, well, in the next book, but I don't really follow that logic a lot of the time. For me, a book needs to stand on its own. So yeah, it might change in later books, but we're going off of this. And first off, let's start with the beginning of the book. At the beginning, the very first things that Percy tells the reader is that they shouldn't want to be half-blood. And basically, if they think they are, they should ignore it and go back to their regular life. And this warning makes no sense, because ignorance was half the reason that Percy got put into such horrible situations in the first place. Because at the beginning, when he doesn't know who he is, he, leaves Grover behind when Grover was specifically made to, protect him. He doesn't tell his mom about seeing the Fates. And if he had, she could have gotten him to a safe place a lot sooner. So the entire battle with the Minotaur, his mom going poof in a shower of golden sparks, could have all been avoided if he'd known who he was and what the danger was. And in general, it makes no sense to tell godlings that they should remain ignorant of who they are, because again, you may be ignorant, the monsters are not. The monsters can sense you. So the best defense is to tell people what the danger is and who they are, and let them take the steps to defend themselves. So no, the beginning, the cool warning at the beginning, a la, Lemony Snicket, makes no sense, because fewer bad things would have happened to Percy if he had, known who he was up front. Up next is, I don't know that I'm the biggest fan of how eugenics-based the personalities of the godlings are. So if you don't know eugenics, it's kind of a big scary word that's thrown around a lot, but eugenics is basically the idea that children inherit more than just their physical makeup from their parents. It's more than just hair color and eye color, but also they inherit their intelligence or their skills or their personalities. And this has been mostly disproven. You could be born to very averagely intelligent parents, but be very brilliant, a la Albert Einstein. And it's been, again, connected to some very bad things. But in this book, you see all of the godlings basically act exactly how you think their godparent would. All of Cabin Aries are brutes that want to fight all the time. They talk about how, all the children of Aphrodite don't want to play games and get sweaty. They just want to sit around and gossip. And this makes no sense, because for the majority of it, they've never really met their godparent. Maybe they've seen him on a field trip, but they've been mostly raised by their human parent. And yet they're still acting exactly as their godparent would. And it's eugenics. It basically is eugenics come to life. And I was a little bit annoyed by that there wasn't one child of Aphrodite that's I'm gonna try and do the physical thing, or one child of Aries that was maybe I should chill. No, they're all exactly as their godparents are. And slightly annoying, but I'm hoping that changes in future books. Fingers crossed. This next one I know is going to be a hot take, because I'm going to talk positively about the movie, and I don't think you're allowed to do that. But the plot structure involving the pearls is a lot stronger in the movie than the book. Quick refresher, in the movie, they know about the pearls early on and their need for them, and the things they go to, the places they go to, Medusa's roadside shop, the Lotus Lair or Lotus Casino, all of that is for the express purpose of getting the pearls. And it makes a lot more sense than how it happens in the book, where in the book they're basically just told, oh yes, go in this direction to this place, and they just stumble across all of the other things. They stumble across Medusa's roadside shop. They stumble into the Lotus Casino. It's a lot less purposeful, and it's basically just them wandering around and stuff happening to them, as opposed to them purposely going out on the quest to do the thing by doing these other little things first. And I preferred that a lot more, but in this book it's like, he goes to a place, he goes underwater, lady hands him the pearls, okay, moving on. Like, he didn't even know he needed them, or it was a thing he needed to be worried about until it was handed to him, because, like, dude apparently never thought about how he would get out of Hades after he got in. But, that's probably a little bit of a hot take, although I'm not sure, because the opinion on the movie is very vague to me. Because, like, at one point everyone's like, oh, we don't admit it exists, it's horrible, da-da-da-da. But on the other hand, people are also pushing for Luke Lerman to be cast in the Disney Plus series. So it seems to be that, like, yes, it is trash, but it is our trash. And I'm not exactly sure how much of a hot take that one actually is. But I very much preferred that plot structure to the book. And I won't say sorry, but also sorry. So my next two hot takes are focused on this book versus Magnus Chase. So I read the first Magnus Chase, The Sword of Summer, before I ever picked this one up, because this one actually just kind of, A, looked interesting, and B, had less hype, and for my hipster self, less hype is actually more of an incentive. So I read this one first. Now, I will allow that there's a lot of time spent between these two. This one was published in 2005, this one was published in 2015. There is a decade between these two, and you can tell that there's a decade between the two. What I mean by that is, I like this one better because it's a lot more voicey, everything is a lot more purposeful, it's a lot more satirical, which is my preferred take, and this book in particular, it like flirted with satire because it made Ares this like big biker dude, but for the most part, like, it's really only aesthetic stuff. It doesn't follow through with the satire for the most part. Like, oh yeah, Hades' helm of invisibility is a ski mask, but like, it's just that, oh look, it's not a regular helm, it's this other thing. It doesn't follow through with the satire. And whereas in Magnus Chase, you have a goddess, a water goddess that is basically entirely a crazy bag lady, and I love her. So this book was much more satirical, much more voicey, and I just preferred it to the other one. But again, 10 years of writing growth between these two. It's just that writing growth is obvious. And also, this, again, might not be a hot take. It might just be an observation of Riordan's entire, like, artistic vibes as an author. But the protagonists of these two books are literally the same demographic of person, wherein they are both young, troubled boys raised by single mothers and or with other male figures in their lives that they cannot trust. They do poorly in school, are poorly behaved, and generally are snarky about everything. And again, that's just a character type, but it amused me that there was two books in the same universe because, as you may know, Magnus Chase is the cousin of Annabeth Chase from this series, so they are in the same universe. They're basically like Magnus is just the evolved form of Percy, because the big difference with Magnus is that he's homeless. He spent a lot of time on the streets, so he has a lot of street smarts, but he's only on the streets because his mom died. And Percy even makes like references to he would not live with his stepfather, so if mom died and he didn't have Camp Half-Blood, he probably would have ended up in the same situation. So again, we go to, like, it's just the evolved form of the other. And that, again, might just be an author preference. I know other authors like Gordon Corman tend to rely on that same kind of troubled boy protagonist. And as long as it's used as a way to develop them and show that, you know, all of those boys will be boys mentality things are things you need to grow out of, that's fine. I just thought it was amusing. The last hot take is probably the hottest. And that is, we need to chill with the hype around the Disney Plus series. And I know it's exciting, and I know that 2020 is a trash fire of a year that is basically, again, non-canon to the human timeline, but the hype for this thing that has just been announced that we have no other information of other than it is a thing that is happening, and here is the streaming service it is happening on. There's so much excitement, and you can already see that the hype is going too far, because Riordan himself has had to say repeatedly, I cannot say anything else, just that it is happening. They don't have any casting news. They don't have anything else. People have actually turned to harassing the authors in the Rick Riordan Presents series. Authors that have nothing to do with Percy Jackson. Riordan only gave them his name to help them get their footing and to get more diversity in books. They can't give any information. They don't have any, but they're already being harassed by Percy Jackson fans. And we're barely in the beginnings of the hype for this series. And it is a very big possibility that once they do start announcing the cast, that more harassment could take place. That if someone is casted that the fandom doesn't like or doesn't think would be good in the part, could get very severely harassed, is a big fear. It's a big possibility. And also, adaptations always carry the risk of not living exactly up to the hype. Whenever you switch the form of media you are telling a story in, the story in itself has to change. And I know that everyone's like, oh, well, you could do a book, a series, or a book a season and make a series. No, you really can't. Whereas movies run the risk of cutting too much out to save time, book series turned into TV shows run the risk of too much stuff being added to pad the runtime. Because, again, a lot of the problems in the original Percy Jackson books, the Lotus Casino, for example, are gone through pretty quickly. That would not even be a full episode of a TV show. So you're gonna see a lot more get added in, and the characters might not be exactly what you think they should look like, and you might not agree with the actors that are cast. It's not going to be, at least in my mind, the perfect solution to everything the movie did wrong. There's still going to be things that are matters of artistic choice, and yes, Riordan is involved in the series, but that's not magically going to keep it all from going wrong at some point, because there are still directors and actors and producers and a bunch of other people involved in making any sort of visual media like that. So I'm not saying don't be excited. Obviously, in the year 2020, that is a trash fire. Anything that you can feel excited about and look forward to is something that we should consider a good thing, but like, chill a little. Be excited, yes, but also be aware that this is still a regular process. You will still have to wait for information, harassing authors that have nothing to do with the series. Not good. And when the actors are announced, don't harass them. Let them do the job they are hired to do. We don't need anyone deleting their Instagram because of comments. And just let it be what it's going to be. Yes, obviously, if it's awful, you can try another, campaign, because I suppose that's how this first thing came about. But, also, it's still just a TV show. It's not your life or who you are as a person. So, yes. And I'm not saying that everyone who has getting hyped about it is going to be that level of harasser. Obviously, I've seen just as many Percy Jackson fans being like, hey, idiots, don't harass the Presents authors. Stop. But also, as a whole, remember, this is still an adaptation, still has every risk of going wrong, so let's not hype it up to levels that it could not hope to reach. So those are my hot takes. Again, they may be more mainstream than I think. I don't know that I'm going to jump headfirst into being a Percy Jackson stan or even a Riordan stan. I mean, I like what he does from a business standpoint. I have read a book from the Rick Riordan Presents series, but I enjoy that I have read the hyped thing now. Don't think I loved it as much as other stans did, but I am going to be continuing with the series at some point. So if you're interested to see that, please feel free to subscribe. Other than that, I will probably go back to all of my weird indie books and mass market paperbacks from 10 years ago. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.